Hey, you know that Jesus isn't real, right? You know that they just made up Jesus at the Council of Nicaea in 325? How could Jesus be real when the letter J didn't even exist until the 1600s? Open your third eye, man.
Be strong.
Is Jesus real? That's the question we'll answer today in the Work It Out podcast, where I answer everyday questions from a biblical perspective so that you can be strong and courageous in living out your faith. If you're new here or maybe new to YouTube, I'd love for you to join the community by clicking the subscribe button below. And if you like this video, won't you bless the like button as well? At the time this video is released, we're in the week just before Easter. That's considered the Holy Week. And during this week, Christians recall the events that led up to the death of Jesus by crucifixion, as well as his resurrection. Now, in another video, we'll talk more about the legitimacy of the resurrection as well. And once that video takes place, you'll be able to click up here somewhere to be able to watch that. So historically, was the Jesus that we find in the Bible an actual living person that walked the earth 1,000 years ago? This is an important topic because this is the foundation for the Christian faith. This entire religion hinges on the literal existence of Jesus as the Christ or Messiah. It begins in the Old Testament, where the Messiah or the Christ is predicted to be born in Bethlehem. Micah 5:2 says this, "But you, O Bethlehem, who are too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth for me one who is to be ruler in Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, of the ancient days." Genesis 49:10 tells us that he would come from the tribe of Judah. Deuteronomy 18:18 mentions that he'll be a prophet like Moses. Isaiah 53 says he'll be a godly servant that will suffer before entering his glory. Then we have the New Testament that reveals to us that Jesus is the Messiah that was prophesied in the Old Testament. The earliest gospel is believed to be written within 10 years of Jesus' death, and Paul's writings were written about 25 years after Jesus' death. So there were plenty of people that were around as eyewitnesses to verify and confirm what is being written about Jesus at the time. Paul mentions this specifically when he writes to the church in Corinth, where he says, "Then he appeared to more than 5,000 brothers at a time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep or have died." Now, wait a minute, Pastor. We know the Bible talks about Jesus. That doesn't prove anything. How do you know that is true? Sure, well, have you heard of Julius Caesar? Julius Caesar was a great Roman general that played a huge role in leading Rome from a republic to an empire that dominated Rome and Roman politics for years. One of his early works was a book named The Gallic Wars that Julius Caesar wrote sometime between 58 and 49 BC. His account of these wars have been taught in schools and widely accepted as fact, but there are only 10 early copies that are currently in existence, and the earliest of those was produced 1,000 years after the original. How about Aristotle? Heard of that guy? Everybody is familiar with this Greek philosopher who covered various topics from physics and biology to linguistics and economics. His earliest work on poetics has only 5 early manuscripts that exist that date back 1,400 years after the original. We have no problem accepting the existence of Aristotle, Plato, Julius Caesar, and others. But when we consider the manuscripts that we have of the New Testament, we have about 25,000 early manuscripts. Archaeologists in Israel literally just found some new pieces of what's called the Dead Sea Scrolls just recently from fragments that come from the book of Nahum and Zechariah. Now, while we don't have any of the originals, the oldest fragments have been dated to around 100 to 200 AD. If you consider that the death of Christ is somewhere around 33 AD, it's a fairly strong case that we have some copies that date between 70 and 130 years after that. There's more evidence for Jesus, more evidence inside the Bible as well as outside. Jesus is mentioned in the Quran, the writings of Judaism, Gnosticism, and Hinduism. The first century Roman historian Tacitus talks about Christ and his followers. Flavius Josephus is another well-known Jewish historian, and in his book Antiquities of the Jews, he makes multiple references to Jesus, and in this and other writings. Josephus, he grew up in Jerusalem, and his father was a Jewish priest during the time that Jesus was alive. So there are many other folks outside of the Christian faith within a generation that talk about the life of Jesus. So it turns out that there is an overwhelming evidence that Jesus is real. What we find in Scripture has been corroborated outside of the Bible through various ancient historians and archaeology. Thousands of Christians in the first century were willing to give up their lives for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, if you're willing to die for something, I'm sure it will be for something that you believe that is true and not for anything that you believe is a lie. Can you imagine being persecuted for following a man that you knew was fictitious, that you knew was made up? There is no serious scholar who questions whether Jesus actually existed. When you look into these facts and you dig into them, you'll find that the man, Jesus, proved his divine origin. He lived a life that was free from sin, gave up his life on the cross to be buried in the tomb, only to rise from the grave for your justification, and so that you can live life abundantly and authentically. Here's the question of the week. What does it mean for you to know that Jesus is real? Let me know in the comments below. Sometimes when I'm feeling low, nowhere to go, Jesus comes along and makes me strong, for I know, oh, Jesus is real. Oh, you still here?